Hello, I'm John G. Hunt, Liberty University, graduate student, Human Services. We're here to talk about interpersonal communications, the interconnectivity of talking and listening. The interpersonal communication devices that form the blueprint for comprehensive collaboration are emphatic listening, fierce conversation, and dialogue. These variables, along with others, determine the societal confirmation if a person is more or less human. How do I master my communication cycles of life? I must intensify my contact quotient, which is the ability to achieve the highest relation based on my interpersonal communication devices. To reduce counterproductive exhaling and increasing the communication transaction of inhaling. Exhaling is talking, inhaling is listening. To allow my nexting to define, develop, indirect, and defend more quality, fierce conversation. Nexting is the ability to come up with words, phrases, statements, to be able to stop or eradicate a conversation that's going in the wrong direction, the negative direction. I will use emphatic dialogue as an instrument for insight and thoughtful commentary. Dialogue is not debate. Dialogue is an opportunity to reach conciliatory consensus. How to master my communication cycles of life continually. To understand that my behavior blend can have me being faithful to a fault, I have to understand that even though my behavioral blend is INC, but I have to still have the professionalism when dealing with people and situations. I do have a new prognosis of power, a relational variable that responds to power. Understanding that power can be used in conflict, can be used obviously in betrayal and hurtful messages and also meta messages. I will expose and explore my conversational compass. A compass is like a GPS, is to find out where you're going. A conversation that has to happen also, not to be negative, but to negotiate. Worry about the consensus should be on progress rather than regress of the conversation. I must sustain quality listening at level one. Level one is the ability to listen with compassion, empathy, listening with my heart rather than my head. How to master my communication cycle of life, adding on to what I've already said. I will listen with my eyes and to be more cognizant of people, nonverbal cues. I must create pathways with meta communication rather than meta messages, which are messages that have hidden derogatory meanings. To be cognizant of my own nonverbal cues and attempt to use my nonverbal cues more resourcefully. That means what I say need to match what I do with my hands or my other parts of my body. The positive process of my behavioral blend. And coming from a large family, I understand. I had 5 older sisters and 7 brothers. Fierce conversation and dialogue wasn't often used. So I have to understand those past failures, and I have to be able to build, establish conversational bridges, roads, and paths that enhance my relational reciprocity. I will believe in what I say as much as what I do. The positive process of my behavioral blend also is helping others receive me through the process of inhaling, of me listening and valuing each and every conversation. Being mindful that mindfulness can be a solution to some interpersonal problems. Mindfulness is understanding the value of each and every conversation and being in that moment and not moving from that moment until that moment is complete. Creating true dialogue that's not combative and contradictory but conciliatory. Negative elements of my behavioral blend. I must give other people an opportunity to talk. Looking for excuses because I talk too much at times. I must understand that the importance of emphatic listening and using communication devices as power brokers. That means using meta messages, hurtful messages, in order not to help but to hurt people. Negative effects of my behavioral blend also include I need to understand age, race, spirituality, perspective, and social economic conditions should not determine my perception, reception, and attention for another person. That means that I need to, again, value each and every conversation. I have walls, or what walls will stop me my interpersonal communication development? The wall is the problem, the wall buster is the solution. Not being consistent with continuing engaging in communication strategy that I've learned. Solution, being cognizant that relational foundation begin and end with verbal and nonverbal cues. Using power, the wall. Using power as a violation rather than value. Solution, when we invest time, reflection, and care into listening, we can reduce the likelihood of emotional interference. Wall, allowing conflict to contaminate my interpersonal communications. Wall buster, acknowledging that conflict is interactive. It takes two people. Having conflict with a person is an opportunity to progress rather than regress. I will use conflict as a vision for conciliatory conversation rather than competition. Wall, I must not submit to lifeless dialogue. Solution, I must listen with empathy. I must be aware that the listener is actually in control of the conversation. Wall, I have to be willing to own my own problem. Solution, admitting fault without making excuses. Wall, I must be more responsible to the okay rule. Wall buster, I need to reflect and reassure the talker. Like a football player that continues to get interference calls, he's set on the bench. If a person lacks self-confidence, he actually is calling interference on himself. He is dehumanizing his ability to engage in conversation. Internal interference and contaminated conversation. A Marine was in Korea during the Korean War. His division was surrounded by North Koreans, the enemy at the time. The radio man called and thought he would be in panic. The Marine did not have the defeatist attitude. He said that the enemy was surrounded and not him and his division. By doing that, he probably saved his life and the other men's life also. When a person has negative self-talk, this can be debilitating and reinforce internal contaminated communication. The person starts to affirm his own statements of self-infliction. External interference and contaminated conversations. When an employee at a grocery store says that he can't be promoted because of who he is and other people are better than him, then that person allows these negative thoughts to assimilate with other people. His interpersonal communication has gone viral externally. Interpersonal communication companions. Communication is a twofold endeavor. The interpersonal communication blueprint is still God in the garden with Adam and having fierce conversation. My interpersonal communication companionship, my 14 stages of development and enhancements are: I must continue to do less talking. I must do more emphatic listening. I must continue to be cognizant of my own nonverbal cues. I will continue to work on not attempting to win conversations. I must allow people to feel safe when they're communicating with me. I need not to interrupt, judge, agree, and ignore the person who is talking. I will continue to use nexting as a model to complete and not compete in conversations. I will start listening more on level 1, which is emphatic listening. I will stop planning and processing my thoughts and allow the person to complete his thought. I will start to view conflict as a true interpersonal communication companion. I must understand my personality blend is a bridge that interconnects, invests, infuses, instructs, and intervenes in all conversations. I must leave the conversation in better condition than when I started the conversation. And I always say to my traditional and non-traditional students, saying the right word at the right time can change a person right now. I appreciate this opportunity. Again, my name is John G. Hunt, a graduate student at Liberty University in the Human Service. Thank you.